Hello and welcome to the Therapist Network meeting. We have Hannah Fellows with us, trauma specialist, talking to us about polyvagal and practical tools to reset your nervous system. I'll pass you over to Hannah.
Hello. Hello world and hello you guys again. So I'm going to just talk a little bit about how I came to polyvagal theory before we start, actually, because I have touched on it. Obviously, I'm a psychotherapist and I work one-to-one with people, but the other side of my background is that I worked in rape crisis and with childhood sexual abuse for quite a long period of time. And as a therapist, and part of the training, I came across polyvagal with that, and then I was working with domestic abuse as well. So, and this knowledge has just been invaluable for working in that way. It's a very different way of seeing mental health. It's a very different way of understanding what's actually happening with people that are suffering. So, and that's what I love about it. So you're very welcome to ask questions today, and during, possibly, although I might say hold on in case I lose my train, and also at the end as well, we'll have time for questions as well. Yeah, and I have got some handouts. I'm not a PowerPointy person, so I'm really glad that there isn't one, and that wasn't expected of me today, because I think they're horrible things. So yeah, and what's fascinating about polyvagal, let's just start with what it is first of all. So polyvagal theory is a theory for starters, so it's developing. It was come up with by Stephen Porges, who was a neurobiologist, a neuroscientist, and about 25-30 years ago. And people, psychotherapists particularly, have kind of taken this. So I'm coming at this very much from a psychotherapy perspective. It's used massively throughout neurobiology now, though. And so I'm just going to read you. So first of all, the vagus nerve, what is it? So the vagus nerve is a nerve, it's the 10th cranial nerve, and it goes throughout the body. Vagus actually means wanderer, and poly means many. So it has many branches, and it travels from your brain into your brainstem, into your heart, your lungs, your stomach. The facial nerves, there's lots of connection with our facial expression, which I think is a really important aspect, especially as we've all been wearing masks this last year and a half, and not really maybe using our faces in the way that we used to. Or that we should, and I think that's a really important element of polyvagal. And it's part of the nervous system. In fact, it's the main part of the nervous system. And there are 3 branches within the vagus nerve. So, and it's started developing, they say 200 million years ago, so which is quite amazing. So it's like an ancient part of our system that also exists in other animals, in fish, in invertebrates. It's elements of the vagus exist throughout nature as well, and I want to bring that in too, because I think it's an important part of what the vagus nerve does. So the oldest branch of the vagus nerve is responsible for the freeze response, and we call it the dorsal. And you can think of that. I like to think of it like an animal, like a lizard, right? So what it's about keeping us safe. So the function of this nerve is safety and connection. Those are the 2 most important words to remember. And so it's evolved to keep us safe through helping us process information about our environment. So part of the nerve is that it is constantly scanning for, and they call this neuroception. So it's happening below awareness is the important point. So all of this is happening below our awareness all the time. We are scanning for safety and checking to see whether we are safe. And So the oldest part, and please slow me down and ask questions because if it's too much in one go. So, but the oldest part of this nerve is the lizard part, and so that's like freeze. I always think that there's a movie called Rango, and there's, you know, the lizard where she goes, and then she goes, oh, okay. So, and that's a healthy freeze response, right? So, and this is what I want to bring in today. It's really important. It's about healthy and unhealthy or traumatized or stress responses, because the vagus nerve, when it's healthy and when we have good vagal tone, it works exactly how it should. We need to freeze sometimes. We need to be able to run away if we're in danger. We need to be able to retreat. And that's what it does. It's about keeping us safe in every way. But obviously, the culture that we live in and how society is and things that happen to us throughout our lives affect our capacity to have a healthy vagus nerve. And so really that's what I'm working with when I'm working with clients, is helping their vagus nerve return to normal functioning slowly but surely. So I'll be sharing some of the exercises with you. So first branch is freeze. The second is the sympathetic. And that one is the fight or flight response. So, and then the third one is what we call ventral and connection. So in the body, where these are located is, so I'm just going to stand like this. So if you think it's coming out of your brain, it's going through into your facial muscles. That's the connective part, is in the facial muscles. It's actually everywhere, but in terms of how to work with it, it's in your face. The sympathetic is often very much, we feel here, it's connected into the back muscles and your thighs. So, you know, like if you're uncomfortable, you might get tension in your legs. I don't know how aware people are of their bodies, but part of working with this is to become more aware too of your own body and your own responses to things. So that's what I would encourage to start with. And then the dorsal is below the waist. So that's your digestive system. So the freeze. So often when we freeze, our digestion actually stops. So I want to do an exercise with you, but before I do, I just want to read you a really sciencey quote, okay? Because this is from a paper, and this is what's so fascinating about this stuff, is that it's totally changing how we think about mood disorders, about illness, about everything. It's like, and what I love is that it's not your fault. None of this is our fault. This is our body responding to our environment and an unhealthy environment, and that's how I view it. That's very much how I view it. So here, this is a quote from a paper, it was in Frontiers in Psychiatry. So the vagus nerve represents the main component of the parasympathetic nervous system, which oversees a vast array of crucial bodily functions, including control of your mood, immune response, digestion, and heart rate. It establishes one of the connections between the brain and the gastrointestinal tract and sends information about the state of your inner organs to the brain via afferent fibres, which just means electrified fibres, I think. There is preliminary evidence that vagus nerve stimulation is a promising add-on treatment for treatment refractory depression, so depression is difficult to treat, post-traumatic stress disorder, and inflammatory bowel disease. That's for starters. In line, there is preliminary evidence for gut bacteria to have beneficial effect on mood and anxiety. So this is the other thing, your gut bacteria and your vagus nerve are interacting all the time. So what we eat and how we ingest food and how diverse our gut bacteria is will have a direct effect on our vagus nerve function as well. Since the vagal tone is correlated with capacity to regulate stress responses and can be influenced by breathing, its increase So your vagal tone can increase with meditation and yoga, and this can contribute to your resilience and mitigation of mood and anxiety symptoms. And this was from a study where they literally found that all of these things had a massive impact on mood disorders. So this is huge, because in terms of how much we are medicating and how many people are suffering with depression and anxiety. So yeah, that's a little bit of the background. Is this feeling okay? Am I going at a good speed?
That's great. Interesting.
Yeah, okay, good. Just checking in, because I don't want to kind of go off on, I know I can get distracted sometimes. So yeah, I've already touched on this already, but why is polyvagal important? So basically, it's a new theory of mind and body interaction. And I think that's what's so important, because you know, as holistic practitioners, and all the different things that you have in your array and all the different things you're learning, this theory really ties so much of that together in a really powerful way. And we forget the body so often. We forget our bodies and we ignore our bodies. And this theory really helps with having a holistic perspective. And what I love about it as well is it offers pathways for treatment and self-treatment, and that don't actually cause side effects like a lot of other medical treatments do for these things. And as I've already stated, and I'll keep saying it, for me, it destigmatizes behaviour, because so many people that I see come in and they feel so terrible that they're struggling or they're suffering, or that they can't have a relationship, or that they're lonely, or that they're anxious. And I think we all can suffer from that. And actually a lot of that is actually our nervous system is in fight or flight, or it's in freeze. And it's sort of being able to identify where we are in our nervous systems. So before I do anything, talk about anything else, I just want, I realise myself, I'm like, oh, because I'm settling into being here with you guys, and so I'm aware that I'm feeling fast in myself too, and also that I'm enjoying being here. So I'm kind of, there's something going on for me. So it'd be good for me to ground too. So the exercise, the first one I want to do with you is really simple. I just want you to put a hand on your heart, the hand on your tummy. So. And just let your out breath be a little bit longer than your in breath. So. And just notice yourself sat here. Be aware of the sounds that are around you. And also just inviting you to be in your body a little bit more. So notice where your body's connecting with the seat that you're sat in, or the floor. Noticing your feet. And when we do a longer out breath, we're automatically bringing in that parasympathetic response. So if there's something frozen, it starts to help that movement to happen again when we're on the out breath. And this exercise is from, if you're interested in knowing that, it's Peter Levine, partially, which is somatic experiencing therapy. Now just swap your hands. So put the hands on your tummy and the tummy. And notice where your hand is making contact with yourself. So notice, is there more feeling in your tummy? Or is there more feeling in your chest? I find for me, this just automatically just brings me down a little bit from up there. I don't know what you're noticing in yourself, but it can have that capacity to just bring you down a little bit. And now I want you to just look at yourself, right? This is really important. So just look at your hands. You have a body, but not just your thoughts. You're not just your feelings, you're not just how other people are looking at you. You're a person with a body. And again, just a few more breaths where your out breath is slightly longer. And if it comes to a little sigh, you can let there be a little sigh there. And I also just want to speak a little to the frozen in us, if it's there, and say that if it's hard for you to relax like that in a group, do this exercise later in your room, because it's a lot to ask of yourself to suddenly move into. When we're not used to being calm and grounded, it's a lot to ask of ourselves, especially in different circumstances. So I'm always aware of that with clients, you know, it takes time to feel safe. So I can say to you, oh, let's move into a calm space, or let's move into parasympathetic. But if you can't, and that's okay. So, but just to have a go at this later, if it's hard for you to do here. How was that? Did you feel something from them? Yeah. 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 So the reason I'm going to come back to theory for a bit. So I've mentioned Stephen Porges, and I'm mentioning these names because if you want to do more research yourself, these are the people that I would recommend looking out for. And I want to just talk a little bit about the theory side. So Stephen Porges, of course, who's lovely, and he's worth looking up online. And then there is Dan Siegel, you might have heard of him, The Window of Tolerance. So, and I've got some of these, I don't know if I've got enough for everyone, but I can put these, I can send this to you maybe, notes, the notes, so that, and this is, I just found this online, so they're really easy to find. But these are just, there's two different tools that I use for working with this with clients. I'm going to just pass them around actually. And this one is the window of tolerance. This one is the autonomic ladder. I'll give you one of each. You want me to share okay. Oh, I seem to have more of those. Oh, you've got two. Oh, brilliant. So, and this is a way, two different ways of looking at regulation. So, do you want me to? Do you know what regulation is, right? So we've touched on that, and you know already. It'd be nice to tell us a bit more. Would you like me to? Okay. So regulation is the state of feeling at ease, feeling calm, and as it says on here, on the ladder, which I love, I use the ladder all the time, more than I use the window of tolerance actually, but I think they're both really useful. But when we're regulated, we feel at ease, we can deal with whatever's coming to us, and really importantly, we have choice. And I think when I use this on myself, because I experience dysregulation regularly, I think we all do, when I notice it, is with my thinking. When I think I don't have any choices, oh, it's terrible, it's always going to be like this, there just isn't, nothing's ever going to be right again, it's a disaster. That is a sympathetic response. That thinking, to me, is very much connected to fight or flight. And I think now I've kind of got a built-in thing where when I start thinking that, I'm like, oh, I'm totally dysregulated. Okay, let's re-regulate myself. And this is what we're working towards. That's what I'm working towards with clients, is getting them in a space in themselves where they recognise what's happening, that's what's happening. Because we're all being triggered all the time by different things. And a lot of us have social triggers because of our lack of regulation in childhood, because we maybe didn't get the things that we needed from our parents or peers, And so we'll have areas where we're prone to dysregulation, and it's about finding those for ourselves. So I'm not gonna, you don't need to keep looking at these, I will come back to them. I just wanted to give them out to you. And I'm just briefly going to explain the window of tolerance. So window of tolerance was come up with by Dan Siegel, and he was very much influenced by Poly-Vagal theory. And this is this idea of a healthy nervous system. So when we're, for somebody who is well regulated and has had the right nurturing and hasn't been through too many traumas, their window of tolerance will probably be like that, right? That's a nice healthy size for a window of tolerance. So what would happen to them is things are happening, they're going about their day, somebody cuts them up on a roundabout, and they're fine. They're just like, oh, he's a bit of an idiot, isn't he? Carry on with your day, right? Somebody with a smaller window of tolerance, like this, they're carrying on about their day with everything happening. Someone cuts them up at a roundabout and they're like swearing and shouting and screaming because their capacity to deal with challenge is reduced. So, and then with the window of tolerance, you have above the window of tolerance, which we call hyperarousal, which is related to fight or flight. And that is where you're agitated, you're angry, you want to get away. You might, for some people, it may even result in violence and things like that. And the hyperarousal is disconnection. So, and that's where we might get depressed or lethargic, or we find it hard to get motivated in the morning. You know, I think probably a lot of that was happening over lockdown, where we're losing that social connection as well. So this is just a model that's quite useful, and you can look this up for further details, or I could go massively into detail on it, but it's quite huge to do in the time as well. But this is a way of conceiving of it, which I think can be really helpful. And the ladder is very similar. So the ladder, instead of it being a window that you go up or out of, is a ladder that you go up and down on. So, so with this one, the bottom of the ladder, I usually do it like this with clients. So I'll be like, right, so where are you on your ladder? And so the numb, collapsed, shut down element at the bottom, the mobile, agitated, sympathetic, fight or flight in the middle, and then ventral, safe, connected at the top. So, yeah. I feel like I've gone off on one. Do you have any questions about any of that? Does it make sense? Yeah.
I think they're really clear, actually.
Yeah, really good on
the
them.
map.
Yeah. I was quite pleased when I found those, and I've put a link on the bottom, which I'll send through in the notes. There's actually a really nice little write-up on this blog about it, which is worth reading, I think. And then hold on, actually. Yeah. So the exercise I did with you, where we were sitting, this is a really good starting place. And I want to talk to you about being therapists and working with people, and even because what we're doing is we're taking things in all the time from others, no matter what kind of therapy you're doing, or interaction you're having, especially when you're in role, you're aware, we're all aware of each other, we're all interrelating, we're all having a load of communications going on underneath the surface constantly. And especially when you're in role, of some kind, you're not really paying full attention to yourself and to your own needs. So you may be regulating somebody else, for example. You may be helping someone else feel calm or helping them find connection. But what about you? You know, and I think often as practitioners, you get left with something. You might get left with something, and I think that's often a bodily response. You know, you might have frozen a little bit because you couldn't quite fully express yourself in that moment. You know, you might have an opinion about something that you hold back when you're at work, right? You're not going to share everything, you know, we're constantly, and also just empathically, you may just feel so moved by somebody, so touched by somebody's journey or story or pain, or be so aware of their trauma. And I think humans naturally want to help, and so we can be quite open to others. And this is where knowing about how to reset your vagus nerve and how to regulate yourself can be really helpful. So I want to show you another exercise. And dogs and cats do this all the time. Well, dogs and cats do it a little bit differently. I'm not going to do it here because I'm on Zoom. I sometimes demonstrate what dogs and cats do, but you all know, you know when a dog and cat get up and they do that.
Yeah.
Oh, and they stretch out like a downward dog, right? And then they get up and they go, and then they walk off. That's a vagus nerve reset right there. That is your cat or dog resetting their vagus nerve. Oh, because you know how cats, I was watching my cat this morning in this lovely red, I was just like, how can he be so relaxed? and then when he got up to move, immediately that stretch out and then the shake and then he moves. And it's so, and so this is a really good thing to remember when you're moving from one thing to another throughout your life, even if it's a difficult phone conversation, if it's a session with a client, whatever it is. So I'm going to show you a long version of this. See what you think. Does anyone want to do it with me? Yeah. So, yeah, shaking hands is good. So we're just going to do what I call this the brush down. So I want you to just start here with your head, just brushing down gently, brushing down your arms, and movements that cross the midline of your body particularly are really, really good for resetting. Yeah. Now down your front. And when I teach people this, and when I teach clients this, often I say, oh, did you do that exercise? And they go, oh yeah, I was like that. I'm like, no, properly. Really get into it. And all the way down your legs and the back of your thighs. And you can do this, I mean, I do this between clients. If there's particular clients that I know I feel drained afterwards, or that I find challenging, you know, because we're holding a lot of energy. I even do, you know, when I put the kids to bed sometimes and I want to stop thinking about them, you know, all of that stuff. Yeah, so that's a brush off. How was that? How did that feel? Yeah, yeah. And I mean, sometimes, so that's one exercise, standing up. When I've got you up, I'm going to keep going for a minute. But so often with the brush off, I will then go into shaking. So shaking off your feet, letting it all come all the way down. We hold so much fight or flight energy in our bottoms and our thighs. So really getting into that as well. Just shaking some of that out. Yeah, so good for us to do. Yeah. Hi. I hope you're doing it as well. So talking to the video. So yeah, so just shaking. Yeah. What are you noticing? How does it feel doing that?
I do more.
Yeah.
I do this anyway with groups, and I do it when I'm when we did the brush down, thought, well, now I want to shake.
Yeah,
I kind of felt like I
really
wasn't
need
supposed
to
to,
do
and then you
it,
said
don't
shake.
Absolutely not shaking.
Yeah. And I think this is so important because our culture is so, we're not allowed to express ourselves fully physically in public spaces. And especially now, we're wearing masks. So everyone's been smiling like that with a mask on, you know? That's not a smile. Like, that's just a weird, hi, I'm here. And I think all of this stuff, we're missing so much natural expression as human beings that is ours. Like, our birthright is to have a smiley face, is to feel free in our body. you know, so all of this stuff I think helps to bring some of that movement back in, because we've all just been so frozen up by what's happened over this last year and a half as well. I think this is so important at this time. So yeah, right, I want to.
How much time have we got? Oh, I need to check the time.
Yeah.
Okay. So half an hour till the end of the meeting, and I think everyone would be happy for Hannah to continue to the end.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we have networking time where we chat, but if we're happy for Hannah to just take up. Yeah.
So I'm going to talk, I'm just going to give you a couple more theorists actually. So Alan Shaw, that's my favourite. His papers are really hard to read. Schore is his name, but he talks about co-regulation, dyadic relationships, and so starting with mother-child or father-child, yeah. And I think this is the other beautiful thing about this theory, is that we are wired to be connected to others and to be social, and we have so much shame around needing support and needing care and needing love. You know, I was working with people online during this, and they'd be like, "What's wrong with me?" I'm like, "You haven't had a hug for ages." You know, we're not wired to not have human contact, and our body shuts down. And so, as much as I can teach you these exercises for self-regulation, which are wonderful, doing them with others is like triples, quadruples the power of them. Is when we do it, when we're in it together, and we can actually be connected with each other. And Alan Shaw writes about this beautifully. And also you think about co-regulation with a mother and a baby, you know, and this is where the vagus nerve connects into your facial muscles is really powerful as well. So I want to do a little exercise with you on this one as well. This is one I do with clients, and so yeah, I want you to look at your hands and just notice them. Notice the shape of your hands. And now I want you to just notice what your face is doing. So see if you can let your gaze soften as you're looking at your hands. And it might be easy to do it with one. Sometimes I actually, you could even do it like this and hold it like a little baby if you like. That's quite a nice way to do it. So so you're looking at the back of your hand as if it's a baby. And if it's easier, just like this, that's fine too. It's whatever's comfy. I want you to soften your gaze. As if you love that hand. As if it's the most beautiful, precious thing that you've ever seen. And do it to whatever level is comfortable for you amongst the group with people here as well. But just let the muscles in your face relax and soften. And you can put a hand on your heart if that helps you. As you're looking at your hand. Sometimes this can be emotional, this one, so just do it to whatever level it's right. But it's just letting love be in your eyes. You know that feeling, hopefully, I would hope. And now just look down at yourself. Just let some of that be you there. And people often say to me that when they do that one, they feel like their heart starts opening. When you just sort of, as soon as you soften your gaze, something happens here too. Yeah. So just be aware of that and let that be in your body. Gently in your feet, moving the way through. And that's I talked about that one. You can come out of it. How was that?
That was really interesting, actually.
Yeah. Do you want to share what happened? Do you want me to pause?
I'll talk about it at the end.
Yeah, okay, yeah, we'll come back to it. Yeah, so really, really important one, loving always. And you know, we're so afraid of showing expression. So many of us, through whatever's happened to us, whatever traumas we've lived through as well, are used to hiding our faces, hiding our natural expression. You know, and the vagus nerve directly connected into those muscles of the face. So when we soften and when we smile, or when we allow feeling to be there, we're completely resetting ourselves as well. And I often notice for myself little bits of shame come up depending on who I'm with. So I might be all right, and then all of a sudden I'll notice a freeze in my face and be like, oh, okay. Like it's, you know, so it's so subtle. I think of us as being like if you took away all the outside, our physical self, we're like octopi. You know, like we've got all of our little tendrils out and we're feeling everything and we're noticing everything, and we're so used to dampening that because it's not safe to be like that all the time. It's not safe to be open, connected, vulnerable, you know, and out in the world. So, you know, and what I love about this theory and understanding how this nerve works is that you can start to at least bring that in at home, at least bring that in with the people that you love, at least learn how to recalibrate yourself, you know. I believe this goes out into the world too, you know. I'll get going from my my soapbox there as well. So I want to come back to theories for a minute. So Deb's Dana, who I love, Deb's Dana, her name is Deb's Dana Dana. There's loads of videos of her on YouTube, and she came up with the ladder. So that was her conception. Partly, I think, with Stephen Porges actually, and she talks a lot about the rhythm of regulation. So, and this might not be applicable, it depends on what, because I use my voice a lot in my work and I use my connection with people. So with the rhythm of regulation is about how we use our voice as well, and how we use sound, and where we're sat in ourselves when we're talking with others, is partly about that kind of co-regulation as well, how to develop that. And I really encourage clients and therapists to find people that they can do that with as well, where you can find that co-regulation. I'm sure we've already got people in our lives, you know, but start noticing it. Like, who do you feel that with in your life? They're probably quite important, the people that you can feel some kind of rhythm or flow happening. And the last theorist I want to mention, who I only discovered a little while ago, and I just love him, is Stanley Rosenberg. You might have heard of him. And he's actually a body worker. And I think Feldenkrais, you mentioned that, and cranial osteopathy as well, and he does a few other things. And he met Stephen Porges about 16, 17 years ago, and he's come up with loads of, he was already kind of working with this without knowing what it was, and since then he's come up with quite a few exercises and things for working with the vagus nerve directly. I've been trying to get an appointment with him online for ages. Like, please, can I talk to you, please? Because it's really fascinating what he does. I don't know. I'm feeling. How are you guys feeling? Are you feeling okay for me to carry on talking? Yeah, because we've done so many exercises. I'm like zzz now, because it does that, doesn't it? It kind of brings you into a different space in yourself. So there's an exercise of his, but I don't know how much we need it, so I'm a bit cautious of doing it. But I'm going to show you. So this is his basic exercise. I'm not going to ask you to do it, but I'm just going to show you. So you cradle your hands like this. Huh? You want to do it? I just don't want to overstimulate your vagus nerve. You don't know what might happen though. No, let's do it. That's fine if you want to. So make a cradle like this with your hands, and then I want you to put that behind your head and find a space where your head feels a little bit supported. So that your bottom, I'm sure you've got it, but you see, this is your occipital ridge here, and you want to kind of be cradling that a little and let your head go back into your hands. And then you want to find a spot on the wall directly in front of you. Keep your nose pointed there. And you are going to let your eyes travel. Keep your nose pointed forward. And you're going to let your eyes travel to the right. And you're going to look over as far to the right as you can, but without straining. So you can let your gaze drop slightly, or you can blink your eyes slightly, if that helps you to keep your eyes to the right. And that's for 30 to 60 seconds that you're doing that. And you should notice some movement in your throat area. So either a swallow or a deepening of the breath, or sometimes I feel it just like a little expansion in my throat. If you don't worry about it too much, but just bring your eyes back to the middle now. And then keeping your hands there, now you're going to do that to the left as well. Just notice, and sometimes people find one side easier than the other, or they have a reaction on one side more than the other side. That's okay, don't judge it. Sometimes you have no reaction, but if you do it every day, you might notice something eventually. And I'll come back to the middle. Did anyone feel anything in the throat?
My throat lightens on the right side, but on the left side I started feeling a little bit sick. I've done this exercise before actually, and I think I can't remember if it brought up sickness last time.
Yeah. What he does is he looks at people's throats, and he can tell by where the user is positioned as to whether they're regulated or not. And then he does the exercises and then looks at their throat again, and you can see a difference. And I'm just learning that. I want to do some more training in that, but really interesting. So interesting, isn't it? So, because even as a therapist whose main trade is talking, well, it's not really. No, that's kind of what people think. Understanding this is really powerful, because somebody coming in, I could spend half an hour with someone with them talking at me, and they're not regulated, and it's not so helpful. Whereas if I can get someone into regulation and then speak with them, it's a totally different session. So I occasionally will do that with someone right after a while, usually not like first session right here. it takes time to build a relationship, doesn't it? But eventually I get to the place where it's like, okay, let's make sure we're in regulation for the session, because it just is so much more powerful then. And things still come up and you're still processing and working on shame, but from the space of connection, it's very different what comes up in a session, I think. So, and that is a great one. That is a good exercise. And you can do it laying down. So I often like people that do yoga or Pilates and things like that to do that at the end of it's probably a really good thing as well. I'm sure you do things like that too. So, oh, that's Oh yeah, I've done all the exercises, so that's good. Well, the ones for today. I think I would like to just open it up to you guys now, if that's all right. Just see, you know, any questions or you want to share anything.
Shall I press pause? Pause.
Just check it is full.
Okay.